So, delighted today to welcome one of my long-standing associates and business friends, Claire Morley-Jones. Claire's the Managing Director of HR 180, and it says on the website for your HR 180 business, Claire, HR support and strategic consultancy branded as one half of the partnership.
Indeed.
So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, and thank you for not calling us HR weighty, which tends to be the Yorkshire way.
Okay, well, I'm slightly northeast of that, so maybe I've got away with it from the accent point of view. So I'd just like to run through a few questions, really, that hopefully the audience will get some inspiration, some thought process around your kind of area of expertise, Claire, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with, obviously your business has been long established. I'd class it as what I call a great business. It's got a real energy to it. It's got a real sort of brand about it.
Thank you.
And you work with loads of companies of different types and sizes. Why do you say an organisation or company should consider an external HR consultancy and to support them? What's the reasoning that people would choose that kind of support mechanism?
I think there's a few reasons for that, particularly for SMEs. So an SME predominantly usually can't afford their own full-time HR manager.
Mm-hmm.
So that's normally number one. It's about cost efficiency. Number two is that our job is to constantly be up to date with not just the law. So the law is changing, so that's operational HR, but also with the latest thinking in terms of how you reward and motivate people. How you deliver succession planning, you have talent management in your business. That is our job. And so we have to really know how to actually apply that. Whereas somebody internal tends to end up involved in a lot of operational matters and perhaps having a queue outside their door of people whinging at them rather than actually adding value to the organisation.
All right, okay.
And then the third thing I think is that we're completely objective. You know, we don't necessarily know all of the people intimately. And so we can be that sounding board, really, I guess, in terms of, does this make sense? Am I overreacting? You know, what do you think we should do? Would we be setting a precedent? So all those kinds of things. I think those are the top three, really. Okay,
so that's quite interesting in terms of looking at how people would potentially value the services that you would provide and an external consultancy would provide. I guess outsourcing is one of those quite a common business model, isn't it? People outsource IT, people outsource, whatever it might be.
Yep.
Do you not class yourselves as outsourced partner then?
It depends. I think everybody knows what they're getting when they outsource their IT, so they know that their systems and their network and everything else will still be up to date. I think when it comes to HR, people think that outsourcing is either just admin, so process management and making sure that new starters have contracts of employment and offer letters and DBS checks, or they think of somebody... in fact, I won't mention any names, but they think of a contact centre, basically, where they're pretty much told that they're not allowed to do anything and they don't actually get an extra pair of hands invested in their business.
Those contact centre environments, they can't possibly have the expertise and knowledge in there anyway because they're just, like you say, a number, somebody answering the phone, looking at a script and potentially answering a question with a scripted answer. That's not what you're about at all, is it?
No, it's not. And also those people don't know the business. You know, we say we're one half of the partnership because we're actually part of the business. So people don't, internally, they wouldn't refer to us as HR 180. They literally would just say HR. I'm going to talk to HR or the name of their actual HR business partner. We would be, if we aren't able to go to board meetings, then we'd definitely be part of senior management team meetings. We'd regularly be on site, so we'd know every employee in the main. So it's very different to a contact centre where you have to obviously repeat yourself 15 times as to what the scenario is. You know, we're managing the whole thing, so we know it intimately. It's quite different.
So are your team allocated then as kind of the key contact within an organisation? So I would get, the same team member would be my HR manager, officer, whatever job title people choose to have on that basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So with us, you get two people.
Right.
So you would have your HR business partner, who's the person who, yes, will deal with high-level operational issues, but is also working strategically. So they're looking at the talent management and the succession planning and culture and vision and values and those sorts of things, and making sure that reward structures reward the right behaviours, for example. And then you'll also have an HR assistant who's dealing with first-level operational managers and supporting with in terms of admin as well. Okay. So making sure those offer letters and contracts do go out, the boring bit, unfortunately.
But you get a bit of resilience there then, don't you? As a client, then it's not just reliant on somebody who, what if they're on holiday, they're not well, or they actually choose to move on or whatever. But you don't lose many of your staff, do you? Because it's a great place to work, isn't it?
I still have one of my original employees with me. So she is, it will be 10 years in October.
Excellent.
Yeah, 5th of October, she'll have been with me 10 years. We've just had Laura go off on maternity leave. She's been with me 7.5, and the same. So yeah, we do keep our people. And so the client has continuity and consistency. We don't let teams of people be off together. So the client knows that there's always either their assistant or their partner in, unless there's an emergency, sickness or something.
Okay, no worries. So I look at HR and I look at it from a perspective of sort of risk management. The question I've got for you, I guess, is, well, controversial or otherwise, in your experience, where do most people and organisations create risk around how they manage their people or engage with their teams?
They don't treat people as they would want to be treated. They bury their head in the sand and pretend that the situation doesn't exist.
Right.
They don't seek expert support. They read ACAS, the ACAS website, and don't interpret it correctly. Or they speak to that bloke down the pub. There's always a bloke down the pub.
There's always a bloke down the pub who's got an opinion on everything, whether it's HR or football teams or how to manage whatever it might be. And the bloke down the pub's a dangerous kind of critical friend, because they're not particularly a friend, are they, in that respect? Okay, so risk does happen on that basis,
They don't plan for the future, I think. They're not. I think especially with SMEs, in a larger organisation, you have quite a few resources open to you, and so those resources can get on and do their jobs, but they could also potentially be working on other projects. In an SME, everybody has their head to the grindstone and is getting on actually delivering, and there isn't that spare capacity for planning and looking more strategically at the organisation, where it's going to grow, where it needs additional resource in the future. What does that resource look like? Do we have anybody internally who might be able to deliver that role? Can we promote them? Can we be working with them now so that in 2 years' time they're ready to step up?
I think that's the key, isn't it? The key is there about having that vision of saying we have the talent, but we haven't got the plan. Yeah. And therefore the talent never gets promoted, because when they need the gap filling, they'll go externally to marketplace. So the talent gets sort of brassed off and decides to leave and thinking, I could have done that job if you'd invested in me. So the external perspective then, is that something that seems like a real value add to me? I hate the phrase value add, but it does sound like it's a genuine kind of additional value to the business.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's helping strategically. There's no point having a plan, even if that's a plan on the back of a fag packet, if you have no idea how you're actually going to make that plan come to fruition, and you don't get the best result from either yourself, the business, or the people in it without being able to show them and guide them as to what the ultimate vision is and where you're heading and where you're going, and motivating them towards that. Whereas you can do that if you took, it doesn't have to take long, we're talking a couple of hours to think about what does that look like, and then how do we bring everybody along on that journey with us. Okay.
The succession planning is one area of that, I think, but I'm going to take you back to something you mentioned earlier about strategic, and if you go to board meetings or don't go to board meetings. So I work with lots of organisations, I work with big corporates, I work with medium-sized organisations, and I work with the SMEs and people who are kind of aspiring to grow. And you rarely see HR as a board level appointment in those mature organisations. So that must be frustrating, but is there anything else about that subject that, why is that the case? Because it's really important to the business, surely.
I think it's really important to the business. You don't have a business if you don't have people to deliver. So if you have a business that sells product, you have to get that product out to your consumers. If you have a service, a knowledge-based business, then your people need to deliver the knowledge in order to have your customers. So I don't understand why HR is not on the board, because it should be in order to make sure that everything is in the right direction. But people think about marketing, they think about finance, they think about everything, but who is actually making their business work?
Yeah, or not work.
Or not work, yes, absolutely, in a large number of circumstances. And there are organisations that literally just do put up with very poor behaviour or conduct or underperformance because they don't know how to deal with it, and they don't understand how they should be moving that person either towards performing or obviously exiting the organisation from an operational point of view. But from a strategic point of view, then without your people knowing whether they have the right skills in the right places at the right times, whether they're motivated, rewarded, and when I talk about reward, it really doesn't have to be big. It can literally be a thank you,
a recognition, a sort of pat on the back, and just the fact that someone's seen you do something positive or effective kind of thing. Yeah,
but you'll find in every organisation that some teams do that amazingly because the manager is on it, because they're that kind of, they have a great level of interpersonal ability and team awareness. Yeah. And so they'll say thank you regularly. And then you'll have other teams where that's just not the natural behaviour of the leader. So what mechanism is there in the organisation to make sure that that's consistent? And HR on the board obviously can help with those things. If we understand, for example, that you are about to look at acquiring, 2 other businesses in the next 2 years, we know now that we need to work really carefully on this culture so that we have everything that we need to be able to translate that to a new business. We need to do due diligence, we might have to do TUPE, so on and so forth, So without understanding the strategy of the organisation, HR actually can't be effective, which is why they should be on the board.
Which is why you become an operational function rather than a strategic function, and that's the frustration, I guess, in some cases.
And half the time, not really a genuine operational. For some, it's a policing function.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I have met a few HR professionals recently where it is literally policing rather than practical, commercial. Well, people can use their common sense. We don't have to make sure that absolutely everything is ticked off on a checklist when somebody starts with us, for example.
Yeah.
And then no one values a policing function, do they?
Not really.
No. Compliance doesn't add any value.
Compliance, policing, they're also viewed with suspicion, aren't they?
Yep.
Internally. So HR then would become, you only go to HR if there's a problem rather than HR being an advisory piece.
Definitely.
Going back to what you said about, say a company's got a plan to acquire a couple of other organisations, it's also really important, I guess, to work on the culture of the people who are already there, because they're going to have. A lot of people don't like change. A lot of people, they don't, do they? A lot of people are nervous of change. Change can be a bad thing. And the phrase I use a lot when I'm dealing with people is misery also likes company. So, you don't need a lot of people, do you, to be negative to suddenly start, culturally, this is only going to be a bad thing. Yeah. So where would something like HR 180 impact on that kind of level of cultural improvement or awareness then, if there's a big change in the offing?
So we would normally start with looking at what do we already have, and then we would go on to talking to the people. Unfortunately, lots of people do the whole culture, vision, values, who are we, from the top down. So, the managing director thinks, well, this is my business and therefore it is created in my image and therefore it looks this way, and either you conform to that or you go, basically. So HR 180 normally works bottom up. So we would work with the team initially to look at what does good look like here, what makes you successful in this organisation? How can we replicate that? And so we would put that together and put a big document together, unfortunately, but then make sure that is translated. So does all of those things come across in induction?
Right, okay.
Is it in recruitment? How do you recruit your people? Do you recruit them on the basis that, they've been a very good developer over here? Or do you recruit them on the fact that they're a great team worker and they can train everyone in the team on their development ability? So do you look at character or do you look at just skills? So we look at the recruitment process, then induction. How do you induct somebody into the organisation to make sure that they already understand the values? And the other reason why you need to have culture really strong from the beginning, have a really great understanding of it from the beginning, is because then you can communicate it as part of the recruitment process, and then people self-select.
Right.
So you don't have to drop people out of the system. They decide whether they want to be part of it or not. And so this is why we have some SMEs who have no budget in comparison with a corporate, but because they've been very clear about the type of person that they want and why that person should be excited at coming to work for them, they can get somebody, returning home to Yorkshire who's been down in London for the last 5 years and has got completely sick of it and will take a massive pay cut because they get these particular things and a great environment to work in and a team that they enjoy working with. So we look at all those things, the recruitment of the people, the induction, then how do we reward them? How do we recognise them? Is that just on the basis of KPIs and objectives, actual tangible stuff? Or is it to do with us and who we are and how we feel about each other and
the impact we make in our team environment, that kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it a once a year performance review or APR process that doesn't mean very much, or is it a regular thing that's happening, to make sure that we're taking care of our people? And we would do that all the way through, and get that really clear in the first 12 to 18 months of the organisation as it is on its own.
Yeah.
And then as we acquire others, it's already there.
It's embedded.
Everybody can feel it. It's a tangible thing. I don't know how it becomes tangible, but it does.
Yeah, if you can feel it, it's tangible. Yeah. The evolution to get there is slightly hard to quantify, I guess. Yeah. In terms of looking at that, one of the areas that's very, very prevalent at the moment is mental health awareness, for example. And it's a really important subject. It has been forever, but it's now got a lot more traction, I guess. It's got more publicity, social media, etc., etc. And yet you still see some people embrace the need to be on board with that and to be doing it right and putting training in place and all that kind of thing. And others still look at it and go, so what? How do you deal with the resistance people have to doing the right thing, where people are treated as a commodity rather than treated as an asset? Because how do you deal with that from an external perspective?
Do you know what? We're actually really lucky that we work with some phenomenal people for whom that isn't an issue.
Right.
Mainly because they self-select on the basis of our brand.
So I guess somebody who is culturally ingrained negatively wouldn't choose to work with you because it wouldn't be a good
they'd
fit.
Look at our website and think that it's not bland and boring and tick boxy enough, and so they wouldn't engage our services. I think in a corporate world, it's a talking I think shop is possibly the wrong word, but it's a talking point.
Yeah.
The reason why in a corporate world that still isn't actually working is because they do still treat people as numbers in boxes rather than as individuals. SMEs are much better at that because they, the MD or the directors or the senior management team really know every single person and are engaging and interacting with them on a daily basis.
They probably know their wider family network, and they probably know their sort of personal circumstances a lot more as well, don't they, really? Yeah. But the genuine care, there's no reason why you can't care in a corporate, but I guess the impact of that caring is less, isn't it, across the overall team?
Individual managers care.
Yes.
Absolutely. And individual team members care about each other. But it's more difficult for a large corporate with so many people to treat everyone as individuals.
Okay.
But then, HR doesn't help with that as well, because sometimes HR will say, everybody must be treated identically.
Right.
Actually, people don't need to be treated identically. That's the opposite for what needs to happen. They need to be treated fairly so that there is equality across the organisation and parity between different individuals. but they actually need something that's unique to them and their own circumstances because they are a unique individual.
That's a really interesting take, because you would look, wouldn't you, that there is this whole sort of agenda piece where equality means the same.
Yeah, no.
But that's a really interesting take on it. Equality just means being fair to everyone in the same way. Is that that's a that's an interesting take on that, really, because equality usually in the eyes of the listener or the viewer would say equality means we're all the same.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. We all, and that's to be celebrated. Why would we all want to be the same? The world would be incredibly boring or horrendous if it were filled with mini-me's. But
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far, Claire. But it would be quite a noisy world if you and I were the only types of stereotype that we had in there, wouldn't it? Really, I guess. So, okay. HR and people and management leads to leadership. Okay, so I'd be interested in the years that you've been doing what you do, leadership, business cultures, etc. What's been the best example of where you've seen real leadership in action and the impact that might have had on an organisation? You know, whether it's cultural or operational, you've just said they've got that right. Can you just share with the listeners and the viewers a bit about kind of good examples of leadership, communication, that kind of thing?
So I think that this one would be a client whereby they ultimately bought the business from their brother. So it was a family-run business. It had been for a long period of time. The younger brother had worked under the older brother very well for a number of years, and then started, as the younger brother increased their own learning and got out in the world a bit more and saw things, suddenly realised that actually that the way the older brother was running the business wasn't what he wanted to be part of, and so said, either I leave or I buy you out. What would you like? So the older brother said, well, actually, I just want rid of all this rubbish and have all the responsibility.
All these people, get them off my desk, yeah.
Well, the reason why he wanted all those people off his desk was because he was exceedingly autocratic. And so nobody was able to take a decision at all. Right. And they queued outside his office on a morning to take their problems to him so that he would issue a final verdict on what should happen, basically. So in the end, nobody came with solutions because he would pick his own way anyway. So the management team, who were actually very capable, had never been given the opportunity to explore that capability or their potential or anything. They were really quite downtrodden.
So no decision-making process at all. Literally... No. Here's what we've got. Here are the options. What should I do, boss? Yeah,
basically. Wow. Yeah. And woe betide that you made a decision on your own without having got it checked first. You know, massive blame culture. Terrible blame culture. And so ivory towers, nobody shared information. It was horrendous. Anyway, younger brother was completely different. He'd had a number of different experiences in life and done some leadership training. I can't remember which college he went to, but basically he'd gone and done some. And it didn't happen overnight. These things never do. But the atmospheric change was palpable on the day that he took over. There was trepidation, but also a certain mute level of excitement that built.
What, within the business? Or?
Within the business, yeah. And he held, I cannot tell you, literally, I don't think it was daily, but at least every other day, quick briefs with the entire team. You know, there's 170 people in this team.
Wow.
Did a daily call whereby anybody in the organisation could dial into the call, and he would take questions. He would explain what was going on and what had happened since the last call. So communication was really, really key. Put massive leadership development programs in place for all of the senior management team as quickly as possible, and coaching. There were one or two people who couldn't step up to that process.
Yeah, it's not if you've been ingrained in the fact that thou shalt not make a decision and you've been there a number of years, it might be very alien and actually impossible for some people to move out of that sort of that box, really. So I guess that's a regrettable sort of set of circumstances, but culturally the business will have been better off as a result of that, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, you know, there was, because we knew it would take time for those individuals to come out of their shells, experiment, make mistakes,
Yeah.
and not get blamed for them, and then learn that they could, carry on, that they could have innovation, that they could have a level of creativity and autonomy to make decisions themselves. Everybody was given, we said we would do nothing for at least 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
And then after that, only after having provided a full raft of support, see who had the capability.
So who's going to step up? Who's on board?
Yeah.
Who wants to be? And,
Yeah.
and actually, sometimes people might just say, the culture's changed. I'm no longer a fit for that culture, and that's a good thing from their stress levels and things as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a client who's got a sign on his door. He's the MD of a business, very successful business, and he's got a sign on his door, and it says, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, "Stop. Do you know the answer before you ask me the question?" And I think it's genius, because he said he used to get people traipsing up and saying, "What should I do here, boss? What should I do there, boss?" And he'd say, well, his answer was, "What are the options?" And first of all, they'd say, well, I've come to you because I don't know what the options are. He'd say, well, go and work out what the options are and then come back to me with the solution. And it took a while for them to get into that habit. But now no one comes. No one comes with a problem. They come with a solution, or they come with an idea, but they're not coming to him with the operational, I've got to ask my boss. And he said, I stopped answering questions for 3 months for the people I knew they know the answer. And then I put the sign up. He said, "Stop. If you know the answer, don't ask the question." Yeah. And he said, at first, people are like going, who do you think he is, sat there pretending he's in his ivory tower? It was actually the exact opposite reason he did that. So I'm always interested how people deal with communication and leadership and those kind of things, really. Okay.
But if the leader has to answer every question, they actually don't have a viable or sustainable business, do they?
Well, no,
So
because then if they're not
operate
there, they're not there, just the inertia and stagnation and things. Okay. You've got a great settled team at HR 180. We touched on that already. How and why do you think that is? And what lessons does that offer your clients as examples to follow? What do you do right that you can say, without saying, do as I do as I say, but what you're a shining example of a small, medium-sized business that just doesn't have any problems in attracting and retaining the right staff. I'm sure you probably do on a day-to-day basis, but give us an example of what lessons you can transfer to others on that basis.
I think one of the reasons for setting up the business was that I wanted to show that you could run a business differently, and that it was two people buying into an employment relationship, not you buying someone's skills.
All right.
So it was important to me that was two-way, and that people were invested in the business and what we could achieve together. And so I was joking earlier today, it's Laura's birthday today, so we had birthday cake. And
of
I was
course
joking
you did.
today.
Of course you did.
We did.
You go to HR 180, there's always
and
cake.
there's always cake.
Good coffee. Good coffee as well.
Good coffee and always cake,
yeah.
And that is one of the very big secrets. But we were all joking. Everybody knows that it's actually Ange that runs the company, and I literally am at the bottom, and everyone else is on top of me. In fact, even the dogs come before I do.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody wants to be part of something and feel part of something. And we've created a family that isn't just work. I mean, it's a work family rather than a blood family. But it
because it's a work
something.
family, not a blood family, it's not dysfunctional like a lot of blood families might be.
Well, we have our moments, obviously. We have our moments. But, we will all pull together. One of our team members was unfortunately leaving her husband. Every single team member, even if they could only make it for half an hour, came to help move her out of her house into her new rented property.
Yeah. Which is quite stressful for that person on a personal level, which it must have been great to see the investment her colleagues have put into that relationship just to help out, I guess, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Brought boyfriends, partners, everything to carry furniture.
Excellent.
And nobody thought anything of it. We've had Kim this year run our family day, so she took responsibility for the entire thing, and it went amazingly. We bring everybody's family in once a year.
Wow.
To this year it was for a barbecue.
Yeah.
And all kinds of little activities and things for the kids. So the entire family descends on HR 180. Molly, we do a lot for community as well.
Give us an example of what you do, because you're in a unique position of a where the office is based. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's a converted barn building. You've got fantastic fields for the dogs to run, etc., etc.
And the people.
Yeah. But yeah, actually, I was thinking about the dogs will enjoy the fields. I'm not sure the people probably do as well. But what's the community itself? Because you are slightly isolated from. You're not right in the centre of a town or a city or whatever. So give us an example of what you're doing there then.
So this year, one of the things we've done, we're literally about to run another event. But this year, in April, we raised money for Martin House Hospice, which is at Boston Spa.
Oh,
so
yes,
literally like 2 miles away.
On the doorstep.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do amazing work. Obviously, I'm sure most people have heard of them. And we did a cake away. And basically, we sold pieces of cake. Between the team, at that time of us, there were 10. We made 500 pieces of cake.
Wow.
And we raised £1,202.
Excellent.
Many of our clients, we had pre-orders. So we had 23 boxes pre-ordered before the actual day. And then we sold the rest of it either in Wetherby. We went around every estate in Wetherby selling cake, or actually on Park Hill itself.
Right.
So it was amazing. People, and it did something really good for the charity. But it also really brought the team together, because obviously everybody was talking about recipes and what they were going to make and getting it all organised and buying ingredients, and we were all taking pictures and sending them to each other. Yeah. So
social media is brilliant for that as well, isn't it? In terms of sort of visuals of whatever. And I actually don't get the Great British Bake Off as a concept for TV because you can't smell it. You can't taste it. I just do not understand how millions of people watch people making cake. But at least in your sense, you can get to taste the cake, can't you?
Oh, yeah. I bought a lot of my own cake.
So I guess the takeaway from the podcast is, in terms of HR, looking after your staff, is learn to bake a variety and make sure it's good quality cake. Would that be fair?
I think it's more about make sure people are involved in something. So
okay.
yeah, there is cake always.
Doesn't have to be.
There doesn't have to be. So they're involved and they have the opportunity to make a difference as part of their job. And so we do that for clients all the time, which is great. But then to be able to also do that for the community and for each other as well. I think people like to have a purpose in life and feel good about what they have to offer and how they've used their skills.
So it's harnessing that, isn't it, really, in a workplace and making sure that they feel entirely immersed and confident in the fact that they've chosen the right place to spend what is effectively about a third of their time on an 8 hour basis, really. So it needs to be that. So Claire, that's been absolutely fascinating. It's been brilliant to catch up with you again. I'm looking forward to your next event. I'm trying to be on a health kick, but I think cake will probably defeat me. So
you just need pound coins.
Exactly, a lot of pound coins for the fundraising, etc. So Claire Morley-Jones from HR 180, thank you for being a guest on the podcast. And
thank you for having me.
Your contact details will be on the end for people to contact you to see if they would want to improve their culture, their strategy, and not just their operational HR. Thanks very much.
Thank you.